we have no time to waste because this is the biggest update that Back 4 Blood has ever had. So let's get straight into it here. New thing right off the gate, Act 6. A whole new act with 5 new maps, and each one of these maps is very different than the previous. And what I really like about these maps is they bring you into different settings, which is something that players have been wanting for a long time. Now, let's load into one of these maps and talk about another really big thing, which is the new cleaner. And if you take a peek on the right-hand side of the screen, I'll move out of the way here for you. We have ourselves Tala. And Tala is really good for a lot of reasons, but let's take a quick peek at her card. Tala causes her targets to bleed, which, by the way, I think the bleed, I'm hoping I'm getting this right, it's 1 damage every 0.2 seconds, lasting for 5 seconds, and there could be 10 stacks of that. So in my mind, that means it's like 50 damage per second. Also, Tala can spawn in a friendly tall boy named Jeff. You do that by finding a whistle on the map, you blow the whistle, and then sure enough, Jeff comes a-walking on in and starts stomping on other ridden. And then finally, the team effect here is that Tala causes a warp chest to spawn on any map. It's not just the hives anymore. So, you can already imagine how good Tala is. Let's get into a match with her and show you a few more things about her. So in the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see that Tala starts with a vector, which is really good with her bleed stacks. And then also she starts with a bow and a bait jar. Now, if you're paying close attention, you might notice a couple of things going on the screen, which we'll try to cover all of them. One of which is that the bow has attachments on it. The bow got attachments with this update, which is awesome, but you might notice they don't look like gun attachments. It's because they're not. They are the melee attachments. So if you take a peek here, there are new melee attachments that you can put on your melee weapons, but also the bow benefits from these melee attachments, which I think is a really cool, clever way to implement them. So in this one here, we have 2 aluminum cores, but there's a bunch of different melee attachments that can be on these freaking melee weapons here. What's one of the ones over here? We have stumble damage, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure the purple variant of this can go to like 75%. So 75% stumble damage on a bat that already has a stumble multiplier of like 3.5. And then there's like other stuff like heavy hitter and empowered. There's a lot going on for these melee weapons now, so it's a good time to be a holly or a hang. Now, other things to keep in mind. I'm gonna kind of be all over the place because there's a lot of different things to cover. If you are also paying close attention, you may have noticed that in the bottom left-hand corner, I have a lot of lives. That's not me that's doing that. The bots also had their decks reworked a little bit, and one of the things that they got was needs of the many. So if you're playing solo, it just got a lot easier, which is really, really nice. Now, again, let's just keep covering things as we see them because there's so much. Now, yeah, that's the flamethrower right there. Let's keep talking here. So another thing here that we should talk about is we're talking about how melee attachments affect the bow. Well, some of the cards also affect the bow now as well, including Slugger and Brazen. I don't think Battle Lust affects it, but there is an attachment for melee weapons that does give you health per kill, by the way. But I don't think Battle Lust affects the bow, but we do have 2 cards that will affect the bow. Other things that affect the bow now that weren't affecting it before include a reload speed and then also bullet damage. So I'm not really sure how fast I'm gonna fire here all willy-nilly, but let's try it. So I'm not even fully built out. I don't have mag coupler or anything like that. So like I can still aim in and all that if I wanted to. So the bow slaps really hard right now. So, oh, do you see razor worms out there? Well, on the topic of razor worms, let's go ahead and talk about that. So if we take a look at our corruption cards here, new card called Razor Worms. There's actually 3 new corruption cards. It is Razor Worms, it is Terrifying Hordes, and then also Infected Troops, which is the camo ridden got reworked to be a little bit different. But now let's talk about Razor Worms. Clusters of Razor Worms grow and spread throughout the area. Crouch through them to avoid their effects. Okay, so we'll show you that in practice, but we also have one of the new sentinels here, the Swarmer. There's 3 sentinels, this one's the Swarmer, and the Swarmer basically spits out bugs, and those follow you around and try to kill you, so you need to kill the Swarmer to get rid of the bugs. And actually, before I walk on out, let's pick up a smoke bomb, because one of the things that changed with the smoke bombs is they should cause stumble now. Come here, buddy. Come to me. Huh? Ugh. Yeah, they get all pushed around now. So the smoke bomb's got a little bit of a buff. But now let's talk about the things that are immediately in front of us here, which include these razor worms. So razor worms, if you get too close to them, they'll cause a bleed, and it causes you to take damage over time. However, if I crouch through them, I'm not taking any bleed damage. Now, there's one really important thing to know about these razor worms, which you may have noticed. Here, get out of here. Is that this flamethrower spawned in here. So anytime you have a Razor Worms level, you should have a flamethrower that spawns with you. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, the flamethrower can get rid of the Razor Worms, which is really nice. Do these guys die to the flamethrower? I wouldn't think so. So you can get rid of the Razor Worms with the flamethrower or a Molotov, things like that. And now actually, I wonder here if I push forward a little bit, if I can find how you reload the flamethrower. Yeah, right here. So, if you want to reload your flamethrower, you can reload them with either propane tanks or with gas cans. Now, a pro tip when you're reloading here, if you want to be very quick about your reload, you can do the reload and then punch, and then suddenly you're reloaded. They replenish 100, and again, you have a max of 300. But if you want to, be pretty quick about the reload, just pop, and then suddenly you can reload. The reload animation is pretty nice, though, so if you want to watch it, I guess, you can go ahead and do that. But, poof, that's what I do whenever I reload my flamethrower. Oh, one thing to keep in mind, though, is if you set down this flamethrower, keep track of it, because it's pretty easy to lose. So keep your eyes on this thing. So here's the swarmer. I'm going to let, oh, there's 2 swarmers. Oh my God, I'm going to let them swarm me. So they spit these bugs at you, and I think I can actually get rid of the bugs with the flamethrower. Oh my God, get off me. There's so many freaking shard ridden. So I'm going to let these guys hit me here. Oh God, I forgot they punch if you get too close. So go ahead and put your bugs on me. Now you can't really shoot the bugs. You can burn them, but you can't really shoot them. These bugs will deal, oh God, they do a lot of damage over time. Leave me alone! One nasty part about these swarmers is that they will target the player on the team that has the least amount of health as these guys turn into ferocious and monstrous. So I'm actually gonna burn some of these bugs here. So one thing that's kind of neat here is since I just killed those swarmers, I have this thing on me right now called Empowered Assault, another one of these new cards. And the new card goes ahead and makes it so whenever you kill a mutation, the next time you damage a mutation, you guaranteed to cause them to stumble. So if there happens to be a bruiser right next to you and you only have a little vector, oh my God, there's 2 bruisers. Either way, you saw that one little vector went ahead and stumbled him, and then I lost that charge that was on the bottom of the screen. So, whew, let's keep going here. Lots of new stuff happening. Now, something I know y'all are gonna be curious about is if the flamethrower works with things like pyro. So let's go ahead and take a look here. I have pyro equipped. I also have knowledge as power, so you can kind of see the damage numbers. Now, granted, damage numbers are going to be high because we have pyro on, but if you take a peek, sure enough. Oh my God, this is so much damage. Sure enough, we get ourselves some temp health via pyro. So have fun with this thing. Oh my gosh, why does it do so much damage? And before we move on to our next set of things, because there's just a lot of things, some of you might be wondering about the bleed on Tala. Is it affected by things like glass cannon? Well, typically, if I were to shoot something, you'd see a bunch of 1.1s spitting out of a common here. Let's see what happens with glass cannon on. You'll see it's 1.4s. So yeah, go ahead, take a look at glass cannon, maybe belligerent, stuff like that that just increases your overall damage. You might go ahead and get a lot of effectiveness out of Tala's bleed. Now, one of the things that I'm sure people are going to be wondering about Tala's bleed is, well, how does it work with a shotgun? Well, if you take a peek here, you'll see that you get a lot of stacks of it right away. Oh gosh, get away. By using a shotgun, it works per pellet. So, woo, Tala's going to be somebody who really brings a lot of offense to the team. But now, I'm sure you're wondering, well, what is it like if we go ahead and summon Jeff? So let's summon Jeff here. You hear that whistle sound. And Jeff, I think, is best to use in a scenario where you can really make a funnel because he'll block an area for you. But what you see is he comes on in and he just smashes stuff. Now, I don't have a whole lot of stuff here to smash, but Jeff, he's known as a friendly tall boy, but he's actually like a friendly bruiser. Ooh! And he just smushes stuff around him. Really good AoE. He's got the bruiser AoE. And he lasts for a certain amount of time. I don't actually know what the amount of time is. And then he goes on cooldown. And then eventually you can just call him back in again. So Jeff's just doing Jeff things, going ahead and smacking people. And eventually the whistle will come back and you can summon Jeff again. We actually have a Tala crate right over here. Let's take a peek. Now these things will produce negative effects like the other ones do, and you can still toolkit them to get rid of that effect. But look at that, it dropped a freaking sharpshooter's monocle, a tenderizer, iron supplements, basic card, and wow, this was a packed freaking kit here. Wow, okay. So before we talk about new cards, let's talk about the other new Sentinel. Well, actually, there's 3 of them. Let's talk about one of the 3 Sentinels, which is this guy. Oh God, the Lobber. And what the Lobber does is he spits out these giant bombs that really cause a lot of damage. And then there's also one other thing he does, which is very scary. Well, actually, they all kind of, oh God. So these things can stick to you, by the way. So don't run at your teammates with them. And then also, they make your ammo capacity go down, and it makes you drop ammo, and then the ammo freaking blows up. So lobbers are very scary. So if you see them, make sure you take care of them. Otherwise, they will take care of you. Wait, did I not take damage on this before? Oh, is it because I have the damnation? Whoa, I gotta try that again. Here, hit me. Look. All right, now I'm gonna remove the damnation and see if I take big damage. Oh, I do! That means the damnation protects. Oh. I gotta try something now. All right, so I gotta see this here. Hit me with your bombs. Oh, don't, God, they punch though. Caught it. All right, let's see if these guys all blow up. me catch that. Oh my god, that's so nice. Dude, the damnation's so good for this. Oh, I feel immune. They can't touch me. So let's start covering some of these new effects here. One of them is called Cleansing Fire. And what Cleansing Fire does is you gain a stacking 5% damage resistance every second you're on fire for a maximum of 5 stacks lasting 15 seconds. Fire removes most negative status effects, and you get 40% fire resistance. And based on what we just saw with the Damnation, you could run this card, and then Durable, and then, I don't know, a Hazard Suit, and you're basically immune to lobbers, which is a great counter. So, but now let's go ahead and show off getting rid of some of these debuffs here. So, I'm gonna let this guy hit me here. You see I'm getting Festering stacks, which sucks. Festering sucks, nobody likes Festering. But if I were to go ahead and have a Molotov on the ground, suddenly you'll see those stacks start to disappear. And again, this will get rid of bleed stacks. You can actually see my stacks of Cleansing Fire building up for my damage resistance. It gets rid of a bunch of different things. I think it'll get rid of some of the wretch stuff, maybe some of the stinger stuff. And what I'm really curious about is if you could use a flamethrower on your teammate and kind of cleanse them like you're cleaning them. I think that'd be kind of fun. It'd be like Power Wash Simulator with fire. So let's take a look at Drone Spotter here. What we might actually see, you see a little red blip? So that means that you know exactly when to pre-fire. Let's say a stinger's coming across through a doorway. It's kind of like Carly's mutation sense, except it's a skill that you can use now and it makes those little red blips rather than being able to see their outline. So since we managed to walk a Crusher into Dr. Rogers here, I'm going to try to show off Hazmat Specialist. So killing mutations that are covered with bait has a 75% chance to create another bait char. And we have ourselves some acid resistance and we can do direct damage to weak spots, which means that you can benefit from some of the weak spot cards like, what's it called, Sadistic or Trigger Control, those types of things, right? But let's go and see if we can get this working here. So I'm gonna beat you up a little bit. And then I'm gonna put this on you. And since he's affected, oh god, Stinger! Since he's affected by bait, there's a chance that he was gonna spawn a bait char. And sure enough, spawned another bait char. So this is really nice if you want to go and try to chain mutations, because if you don't know what a bait char does, let's go ahead and take a peek. It makes it so everything runs towards the bait char, which can be really helpful to get things off of your team. So if you start throwing these bait jars onto mutations, the Ridden will attack those mutations, and as long as you kill that mutation while it's affected by bait, you can keep chaining baits. And if you're lucky, you might be able to go through pretty much the whole gosh darn level with having a bunch of crowd control on your side. And I'm gonna play Run Away from the Crusher here, and I'm gonna try to show off another one of these cards. So we showed off Empowered Assault a little bit earlier, and you'll see it again here. If I go and I shoot this guy with a puny little M4, bam, he gets stumbled, and that was the effect of Empowered Assault. But now another thing I want to show you here is Phosphorus Tips. So if I go and start shooting at this bad guy, you notice how he's taking fire damage? Which is actually really nice against tall boys. It doesn't really matter against crushers, but tall boys and bruisers, they really don't like fire. So what Phosphorus Tip does, now that he's dead, is it makes it so that the longer you fire at something, the higher chance there is that something's gonna start on fire. So, pretty self-explanatory. And that also, I'm assuming, would work with Pyro. So, fire got a big buff this patch. So now let's go ahead and take a peek at Wasteland Chef. So what Wasteland Chef does is you gain the ability to melee food. And you can either create a gourmet dinner or a mediocre meal. And using a combat knife makes it so you have a higher chance of a gourmet dinner. And the reason why we did that was because that'd be fun, frankly. So let's punch this food here and see what we get. And we got ourselves a gourmet meal here. And what the gourmet dinner does is it heals 8 health and 8 trauma. Also, you gain 3 max health until the end of the level. Ba-bam. And you'll actually see I got a bunch of health there. And the reason why it looks like we got so much health is because, one, we got the 3 extra HP, and then also we healed up a bunch of trauma. And something to know about these gourmet dinners, they scale with healing efficiency, which can make them even stronger, and they work on Hang's double food thing, so he heals so much anytime he goes ahead and gets a gourmet dinner. Or if somebody else eats a gourmet dinner, he's sharing off of that. Now, something to keep in mind with food is that there's only about 4 food items that spawn on a level. Now, you can make that go up a lot more with Hang, because he spawns an extra 10, and I think Food Scat spawns an extra 7. So if you build into Wasteland Chef, you can get a lot of healing out of it. But let's see what happens if we get a mediocre meal. I'm probably gonna get one here. Let's take a peek. You stay away from me. And we got a mediocre meal. So a mediocre meal recovers 5 health, not affected by healing efficiency. So really what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to take a look at the food item, determine what it does for your build, or if it's worth taking the risk to turn it into something that just heals 5, or are you gonna try to convert it to a gourmet dinner? It kind of depends on how your team has been doing and if you want to get that extra HP on top of that. Now let's move on to the last 2 cards here, which is Sonic Disruptor and then Ether Bomb. So what Sonic Disruptor does is it emits a pulse that deals heavy stumble damage to nearby enemies and has a chance to knock off armor. Now this has about a 5.5 meter range, and it does really heavy stumble damage, something like 500 or 550 stumble damage to try to cope with the fact that bruisers can really take a lot on no hope. And then also we have Ether Bomb here. So you emit gas that attracts Ridden to you for 7 seconds, but also slows your movement speed by 50%. And I'm really curious to play a lot more with this one because I don't think it's as simple as put it on your melee person and have it go to them, because it's already going to them anyway. I'm wondering a little bit more if you can play with the backline a little bit and make it so it skips over people so you get free hits on things. But we're going to play a little bit with it and see what we can do. But before we get too into testing these last two cards, let's talk about the final Sentinel that showed up here, which is the Whaler. And what the Whaler does is it spawns these gas sacks, which are really like homing missiles that circle in on you, and if you don't get rid of them, they will blow up on you. So let's see if we can get these gas sacks to make their way on over to me. Oh, here's some gas sacks. Now, if they get too close to you, they'll hurt you quite a bit, and they're not very friendly. So look at this guy here too. And now, honestly, I'm a little curious if these things also kind of work like the Damnation, where you can just go ahead and not take damage. But now, don't worry. If these things do get too close to you, you can just shoot them before they, oh, owie, destroy you. Leave me alone. Everything's trying to kill me. Well, since I have this guy chasing me, let's go ahead and flex on him with one of our new gadgets, which is the Sonic Disruptor. Yeah, he's scared. He should be. Just knock him right over with this thing. It has like a 1 second cooldown. Haha, can't touch me. This thing is so good. What are you gonna do about that? Oh, and it knocked his armor off too, didn't it? So, people are kind of on the fence when they saw this new gadget card, but I'm telling you, Sonic Disruptor's really strong. Now, again, it only has like a 5.5 meter range, so you're not just gonna blast through the whole game with it, and it costs quite a bit of ammo, but it will absolutely save your butt if things get too close to you. Now, this is a little hard to test because these bots are kind of big murderers, but if I do this, will they just leave her alone? Oh, look at that. There's your ticket. So you know where I think this could be really good? Like, I know people are gonna think that, oh, I'll just put it on my melee person. I bet you if you go and you sit behind your melee person and then you use the ether bomb, it will take some pressure off of them because they won't try to hit them, but then the melee person can still clean them up as the ridden try to walk by them. I bet you that's how you use this. Mm-hmm. And one thing we should mention real quick while we're talking about all this is that the cultists have changed a little bit. Take a peek here, it'll say Monster Slasher, but something to know about the cultists is that their HP now scales on Nightmare and No Hope like all the other mutations do. In case you didn't know, they weren't doing that, now they do. And as a result, we brought down their base HP, so the end result is that they're easier to deal with on every difficulty except No Hope, where they have a little bit more HP. One of the cards I picked up last level was one of the legendary cards, and something to know about the legendary cards now is that they are all team cards. Now, Unnatural Healing here got adjusted from 5 HP a second down to 1 because it's a team card now. But again, all of these are team cards, so it doesn't matter who picks them up, you don't gotta worry about it anymore. So let me damage you, let me damage you, and then let me damage Mom here. And if you pay close attention, after a couple of seconds here, you'll slowly start to see that their HP is ticking back up. So this means that Emergency Transfusion is now a team card. Smells Like Victory is way better. Unnatural Healing affects the whole team. A bunch of benefits, and then also we don't really have to worry anymore about who picks up the card or who finds it first. Now, one thing I bet you Tala is an absolute psycho for is bleed with razor wire. Yeah, let's take a peek. Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, well, if you have a Tala on your team, let her be the razor wire person. But one of the things I want to show you regarding razor wire is infected troops. So I have a purple razor wire here, and as you can see, things are really having trouble walking through it. However, these bad boys right here should have a much easier time. Take a look at that compared to this guy who just kind of waltzes right through it. So one of the changes to the infected troops here is that they are pretty strong at going through razor wire. Now, Tala is still going to shred them because Tala has that crazy bleed effect. But if you take a look at the infected troops, military ridden are fortified from head to toe, resistant to razor wire, and sporting heavy-duty helmets. Be sure to focus them down before they get too close. Now, that means that they have increased stumble HP. Their helmets have increased HP. It's something like 30 or 40 HP on their helmets. So if I were you and I was trying to deal with them, I would punch them in the gut because their stumble HP is like 30 and your punch is 40. So until you get their helmet off, their helmet's gonna be pretty resistant to stumble. And by increased stumble HP, you'll notice if I hit him a few times here, he doesn't really care. So you really gotta try to take out their helmet or get some punches in there to really deal with them. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about the Sentinels is I'm pretty certain that when they're traversing the ground and they're all like a bunch of wormies, that they actually have reduced stumble HP, so you have a better chance at stumbling them as long as you can hit them while they're moving that fast. Real quick, let's talk about the themes of the character skins that came in here. There's a new theme called Steamed Cleaners, which is like this steampunk kind of thing, which is super, super sick, and they all look amazing. In fact, here, let me go ahead and show you the one that's probably going to catch the most eyes, is the Holly one, where she turns into an actual robot. A bunch of the cleaners got really, really cool skins, and I love these steamed cleaner ones on every single one that got one. Another thing to know about these skins that came in is I'm pretty sure that Charisse got herself a SWAT outfit, as did Hang. But frankly, I might even just use the steam cleaners because that's also really cool. Now let's go ahead and take a look at Hang here, and then he also has a SWAT that he picked up with this update. I love freaking Hang SWAT. He looks so good and no matter what he's wearing. Hoffman also has some cool ones. He has this LARPing skin, which I think is amazing. And then he also has his steamed cleaner thing. Actually, I think Dan has a really cool skin. He's got like a cool eyeball with his. Here, let's take a peek. Yeah, bunch of cool skins. Go ahead and take a peek at them. There's more than what I have showcased here so far. They're absolutely awesome. And one thing we should look at before I forget is the Skull Totem lines. Almost all of the Skull Totem cards have had their prices reduced. I don't think there's one that's higher than 3 anymore. So no matter what, if you get all 3 totems from a hive, you are going to at least get a nice burn card. And on the topic of burn cards and supply points, I believe if I take a look at mine in the burn card section here and take a look at Hired Gun, where are you hiding? Hired Gun was changed. Now it's 5 copper per kill instead of 2, and you can get up to 1,000 copper instead of 750. So Hired Gun got a buff, and I think Hired Gun now only costs 2 in the Skull Totem track. Now, in case you don't already know, there was a whole new game mode that was released, including a whole new area to look at here with the leaderboards. And it's all about Trial of the Worm. So let's load into Trial of the Worm so you can kind of get an idea of what it's about. I actually did a video for the Back 4 Blood channel that's like a Trial of the Worm tutorial, which I'll put in the description down below so you can get a good idea of what this game mode's all about. But basically, it's a randomizer. So first thing you do in Trial of the Worm is you decide how hard you want it to be. Now, Trial of the Worm can be pretty easy. If you take a peek here, it actually starts as a recruit difficulty thing. Right here, it says recruit and everything that comes with recruit, except there's also a roaming boss on every level, just to let you know. But now, if I go ahead and I start clicking some of these things, you'll see that the difficulty increases. So if I click a ridden here, you'll see we get some new things that just made the game harder. Or going to Horde, we get some things that make the game harder. Or going to Player makes the game harder. Or I can go ahead and decrease these if I felt like it was too much. But once you lock in, you're stuck with them, so keep that in mind. Now, I'm going to go ahead and increase things a little bit here, and something to keep in mind is in the top left-hand corner, there's a bonus multiplier that increases your score. I'm going to lock in here. Again, I have all this fledged out in the tutorial video that I'll put in the description down below if you really want to know a lot more about it, but let's just give you some basics here. And after you pick your difficulty for the round, you get to pick a map. So you can vote for whichever map you like. Let me get out of the way here, and you'll see we have Surrounded by Devils, Making the Grade, or Hails of the Worm Part 2, and you decide, well, which one do I want to pick? Do you want to get more or less points? So if I were to go ahead and pick this one right here, we'll actually see Terrifying Hordes, which I don't think I've talked about yet. Let's go into here and talk about Terrifying Hordes. Now, once I load into here, a whole new set of things is going to show up. So now I'm loading in here to a Trial of the Worm level, and there's a couple more things to know about Trial of the Worm that are unique to it, but let's talk about Terrifying Hordes quick here first. So Terrifying Hordes is a card where Terrifying Hordes have been roaming the area. If a horde is called, your team accumulates trauma over time and suffers from negative combat effects. However, cleaners receive powerful buffs by staying close to each other. So with Terrifying Hordes, you'll see a little icon in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen with that 3. That means I am close to 3 of my teammates. Each teammate that I am close to provides a big buff to my stats, be it damage resistance or sprint efficiency or temp health decay resistance. There's a bunch of things that get buffed when you are standing close to each other. Now, simultaneously, if we were to go and call a horde, a bunch of those stats would be decreased. But basically, as long as you are sticking together, you are going to be just fine. But make sure you stick together, because if you run off and split off from the team, you're going to be in a really bad spot if a horde is called. So I'm actually going to try to trigger a horde here, and you'll see since I'm getting farther away from my teammates, I lost my buffs there. Now if I stay close to my teammates again, things are all good. And I think you actually heal over time if you stay close to each other, including your trauma. So don't worry too much about, here, let's piss this guy off. So don't worry too much about the trauma over time, again, as long as you are sticking close together. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll see that little 50. That means the amount of stacks of like negative debuff that you have coming in from the horde. And those stacks will fall off once the horde is pretty much completed, and then you're not triggering any more hordes, all right? The reason why it's set up in a way where it kind of ramps up and ramps back down is to give people time to react rather than it being an instant effect. But again, with Terrifying Hordes, stick close to your team and you'll be fine, all right? Now, some other things to keep in mind now that we're in Trial of the Worm here. Take a look at the left-hand corner of the screen. You'll see it says plus 4,125. That's because you can accumulate score by completing your secondary objective. Now, we already messed it up because I went ahead and I hit a hazard here. But you get more score by completing your secondary objective. And you also get score for completing the level, having cleaners alive at the end of the level, a bunch of different things. And the way your score is manipulated is based off of how hard you made the game via your opt-in difficulty modifiers. One other really important thing to keep in mind is there's these fabulous mementos. Picking up these mementos also increases your scores. If I pick up this bad boy here, once we reach the end of the level, we'll get a bonus because we picked up a memento. And there's 5 mementos on every map, and you can actually get more mementos if you upgrade your player tree. So once you complete your level here, you actually get yourself put into a breakdown screen, which you can see how much score you got because of the mementos, how many cleaners survived, completing the map, and you get to see what your multiplier was. So there's a lot going on here. And then once you go and get through the map, you can go through another round of increasing your difficulty if you like. And then if you look at the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see that Trial of the Worm is a 4-map chain. So you get to go and do this up to 4 times as long as you are not dying. Now, one thing I'm not sure I mentioned is that Trial of the Worm does not have any continues. So if you die, that's it. And you also cannot play a Hell Can Wait card. If you die, that's it. You gotta start over. But it's meant to be shorter chains, and you're basically competing for a high score. And one more time, if you want to see a breakdown of what really all goes into Trial of the Worm, there's a whole video dedicated to it on the Back for Blood channel. I'll link it in the description down below. So there's a lot going on in this patch, and I know I was kind of all over the place, but it's because stuff just kept getting thrown at me, and I was like, well, let's cover it while it's here. So, I hope this was helpful. I hope you learned a thing or two about what's coming in River of Blood with its new DLC, and I hope you enjoy it, because it's, in my opinion, the most fun it's ever been. So, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for showing up. Let me know if you guys have anything else in the comments that you'd like to add to the video here. And with that, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.